Um, this is interesting for me because I usually don't have Republicans who kind of reach out and be like, "Hey, I'd like to talk to you." I definitely usually don't have white Republicans reach out and try to talk to me. And I definitely don't have Republicans that are running for governor of my beloved state reach out. But that's what we have today. And I'm looking forward to having this conversation with the a Republican candidate running for Virginia State Governor, Mr. Glenn Youngkin. Hi, Glenn. How are you doing today? Welcome to Sonnie's Corner.
I'm great, Sonnie, and I can't thank you enough for letting me join you today. I'm really excited to be with you.
Some people that I really trust. They know my history with Virginia politics. They know how I kind of feel about it, but they told me that a conversation with you would be well worth it. I am a daughter of Richmond, Virginia. I currently live in Northern Virginia, so I will be voting in the state of Virginia. Go ahead. Why should I vote for you?
Well, first of all, I'm a homegrown Virginian too, and so I was born in Richmond, a little part of Richmond called Bon Air. Back in the 60s, Bon Air was the other side of the river in all respects, and I went to junior high school in Virginia Beach and Norfolk, and I too live in Northern Virginia now. We moved back 27 years ago, and I'm not a politician, Sonny, so I've never run for office in my life. I'm a true outsider, and last summer I was doing a lot of the same things that many people were doing. We were dealing with the pandemic. I had the great privilege of leading a company that I'd been at for 25 years. Where it started as a small company and grew to be a big company. We're busy in our church, raising our family. And, Sonny, I don't recognize our Commonwealth. The beloved Commonwealth that I grew up in just moved in a place that I just can't recognize it. And I'm scared and I'm worried, but I'm optimistic that we can fix it. And so as a Republican, where the Republican Party hasn't won an election in 11 years on a statewide basis, I quit my job and have jumped into this race because I think Virginians deserve something different, something better, a different kind of governor who wants to move Virginia forward, put her back where she belongs as the best state in America to live and work and raise a family.
Okay. I want to have a conversation with you. I don't really do the interview things well because I want to have a productive conversation with you. When you say that we haven't won a statewide election in the last 11 years, you remember who the last person was, the last Republican to win in Virginia?
Yeah, well, the last statewide Republican to win was Bob McDonald in 2009.
Okay, so I made my political entrance into politics around that time, right? And when McDonald was president, and he passed at that time Confederate History Month celebration, right? And I was like, hold on, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. Confederate history is Democratic history, so why are Republicans passing this bill? And it was very confusing to me at the time because I was like, I hadn't learned these lessons yet. So at the time, Ken Cuccinelli was getting ready to run, and he lost the first election that started the cycle for governor. And I got the opportunity to question him. So I asked him that question. I said, why would you celebrate Confederate History Month when that's Democratic history? Like, why don't you celebrate Republican history in Virginia? And he just looked at me with a blank stare, and I was like, you can talk about all of the HBCUs in Virginia. No idea. You could talk about Black Wall Street. No idea. You could talk about Maggie Walker. No idea. The governor's school in Richmond is the Maggie Walker School. Like, you're running for governor. Should you not know those bits of information? So I'm telling you this story because what I've learned in Virginia politics is that a lot of Republicans don't even know the history of the state, its connections with Black America, nor how to use those connections to make a meaningful relationship. Is that something that your campaign has looked into or is willing to take a look at?
Sonny, you couldn't have asked a more appropriate question because I think this has been the problem with the Republican Party. So first, let me just start. Last Monday, I was in Jackson Ward, and I was standing in front of Maggie Walker's statue. I just want you to know that. And in fact, I love the fact that our governor's school in Richmond is named after her. And I so appreciate the fact that I was engaged in a conversation on Monday with leaders from the Black community who want to talk about how to open up our economy and get things moving again. And I heard tremendous stories about ambition and aspiration and challenges. And so we're starting right now, not in October, right in front of election time, but we're starting now in March and April to develop relationships, to listen. We started Black Virginians for Glenn, and it was so important for us to actually get engaged in communities that want to engage in a meaningful, fruitful, real conversation, just like you started this interview. Not just to vote for somebody or have somebody ask for a vote, but to work towards solutions to real problems. And that's why I'm so excited about running for governor as a Republican and engaging with all Virginians in a way that we can move Virginia forward, as opposed to be stuck with old thoughts and worn out ideas from politicians that have been running for a long time. So thank you for that most important question.
No, it is definitely definitely like the top of my list, because if you look at when you're talking about Jackson Ward, I used to run that area as a teenager, and we didn't have a lot to do, so we didn't do a lot of productive things, and at the same time, in the Bon Air area, my family was from Midlothian. So we also had owned property there and had a lot of property issues there, trying to maintain land that had been in our family for a decade. I mean, for a century now. So it is a wide diversity of Black issues in America in Virginia, that need to be addressed, not just specifically those that are centered in the urban areas, because there's also a large Black population in rural Virginia.
Yeah, I find that the challenge that Republicans have had is that we grab discussions so late that we don't understand the totality of it. So when I had the great fortune to sit down with leaders from Jackson Ward on Monday, or I had a chance to sit down with Black leaders from Northern Virginia on Wednesday, and I'm doing it again next week and the following week and the following week, all the way up through the election in November, what I hear over and over again is that the issues that face Virginians are also being faced by Black Virginians. We've got a huge challenge with education. And we're absolutely not providing an education that gives people the opportunity to fulfill the dreams that they want. And, we sit there and talk about school choice, but we haven't moved forward with school choice in charter schools. And so you talk about the governor's school in Richmond, but there's only 9 charter schools in Virginia. Only 9. And North Carolina has 190.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but do you know, I got picked to go to the governor's school when I was in high school, and I turned down the opportunity because I did not know who Maggie Walker was. I didn't even know who she was. So the Richmond school system that has its governor's school named after her doesn't even teach her history. And like that conceptually is a huge problem. And it goes a long way towards Black Virginians understanding our history and our legacy in this country, in this state, when even the history that we have is not taught in the public school system.
I know. Well, Sonnie, can we just talk about Maggie Walker for a minute? Because
yes,
I want to make sure that all your listeners know just what just an amazing leader she was to actually be the first Black woman to own and lead a bank, to actually then help establish Jackson Ward as basically the cradle of Black capitalism, and the leader to establish it as the Wall Street of Black Virginians, and then to have it in fact evolve over time to become an area that actually is thriving in the arts too, and viewed as Harlem of the South. And
yep.
So I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you, in fact, weren't educated in the amazing history of Maggie Walker, and that she could inspire you by all the things that she did. And this is what we need to do to make sure that we have opportunities for all Virginians, and including Black Virginians. to understand our history, both the good and the bad. But in our school systems today, when we do not offer school choice, the opportunity you had to go to this amazing school, for all Virginia students, a child's destiny should not be determined by his or her zip code. And this is a failing on behalf of both Democrats and Republicans for Virginia's kids.
This, like I said, this is a conversation, so I want to push back a little bit. I think that their schools should be determined by their zip codes, because that's how a republic works. And the moment you remove that barrier of local government, then you have problems with the federalization of education. So when we are talking about it, and I get and understand the school choice argument, and I'm very much for the option of having school choice, but I don't want to win that argument at the expense of understanding how our republic works and how it is supposed to work. Because only when we have that framework designed can we hold the local people who actually have the control accountable for what they have done and what they continue to do. So to me, like, I want to win that argument, but I don't want to win it at the expense of what the republic means and how it operates. The Democrats are already coming after that. We don't have to help them with that messaging.
Sonnie, I understand your point. What I have seen across the country, but particularly with public schools, is competition is healthy. And what competition does in public school systems, and if we give the ability for families to make a choice about whether I want to go to my local school or go to my local charter school or drive across town and go to a different school, it does force the schools to react to the families, to the parents, as opposed to being able to tell families what to do, what we're teaching and what we're not teaching. And I think this is one of the main failings in our school systems today, is that there is no competition, there is no choice. And I think we can absolutely defend against the risk you're worried about by implementing school choice the right way. But I do believe that families should be able to make that decision, and it would absolutely introduce competition into our school systems. It would hold the teachers' associations accountable for delivering the kind of education that all Virginians deserve. And that's what I think is the best path forward for us to really reform K through 12 education, is to begin to give families that choice and not leave it as a monopoly with the school system.
Okay, I know we agreed to a set amount of time, so I'm not going to push you any further. I appreciate you coming on and having this conversation with me. There's a lot of candidates in the Republican Party that are not even willing to engage. So this means so much to me, and this means a lot to my listeners here at Sonnie's Corner. You continue those meetings, and I will more than likely pop up at one sooner rather than later. So hopefully we can continue this discussion and actually make some kind of real change here in Virginia.
Sonnie, thank you. I believe that the future of the Republican Party is through addition and multiplication, not through subtraction and division. And so I cannot wait to engage with you, and I just look forward to meeting you in person. And thank you again for having me on this show.
Not a problem at all. Running for Republican, running for Virginia State Governor, one and only Glenn Youngkin. Thank you so much for coming through Sonnie's Corner. Come back real soon, guys. We're gonna catch up with Giovanni.